I'm going to tell you the real secret about men going their own way.
Men's rights activists, trolls.
Like, I don't get it. But I mean, you m.g.t.o.w seem awfully paranoid.
These communities were grooming and radicalizing schoolboys.
Mentioned every year called the 21 Convention.
Here are 21 of the most watched videos of feminists describing the m.g.t.o.w movement. Please like this video because the more likes and comments, the more people YouTube will recommend this video to, which will help more men and hopefully someday restore order to the Western world.
I'm going to tell you the real secret about men going their own way. You gotta have heart. You can't have walls and you can't have armor going, you'll never come in, I will never let you in again. That, unfortunately, will keep people very lonely and cynical for the rest of their life. And face it, this world is already hard as it is. So why the hell would you want to become a cynic? Why? So that you can survive? So that you can buy more cars, more stuff? And then what? And when you die, where does that go? What do you do with that stuff? Unto what? You're building unto what?
Now let me mention a couple of terms to you. Pickup artists, men's rights activists, trolls. Now if you're a woman who's been on the wrong side of online harassment, it's likely that any or all of them will be familiar to you. They're all communities within the so-called manosphere. That's corners of the internet where men congregate to discuss their masculinity and what they see as the corrupting force of feminism.
And they have this whole convention every year called the 21 Convention, where it's just teaching men how to be better, right? And on paper, that sounds great, right? That sounds like a great idea. But when it actually happens, when you see it, it's basically just a bunch of misogynistic dudes teaching other dudes how to treat women like shit.
M.g.t.o.w, m.g.t.o.w, mediocre men to optimum women.
There is this extreme sense of m.g.t.o.w, and this is men who completely want to dissociate themselves from women altogether. They don't even want to communicate with any women, whether it be family, a neighbor, a friend. And right off the bat, I'm sure you guys can see why this is problematic. Instead of empowering women and being happy that women are being granted more rights when it comes to business, when it comes to politics, when it comes to all across the board, women are progressing, and we've been progressing. Now, men in this community find that to be threatening, which is absurd to me because we still live in a patriarchal society. And even in 2021, being born as a man is literally giving you an advantage head start in life. So the fact that they're anti-feminist is already just so disappointing to me.
Men Going Their Own Way is a group of men, it's an online movement of men who choose to be single. So they're eligible bachelors and they've decided to stay single, which means they won't be pursuing a long-term relationship. They don't want to get married, they don't want to have kids, they just want to stay single and improve themselves. And you're thinking, well, we're hardwired to connect and to like procreate. Why are these men choosing to be single? Well, from what I've read, it's from their frustrations. The frustrations from dating other women, the frustrations from, the gender bias that they see, the stereotypes.
Particularly scrutinizing when it comes to the type of women that they date. They no longer want to be considered the breadwinners, if you will, in their relationships. A lot of m.g.t.o.w men believe wholeheartedly in 50-50 relationships where both the man and woman carry equal weight in the relationship. A lot of these men are just absolutely refusing to give the time of day and validation, if you will, to women, or putting them on a pedestal is what people like to call it. They don't want to put women on a pedestal and make them the prize anymore. They're no longer wanting to assume their natural masculine role of provider and caretaker in a way, as far as like providing for the household and all of that stuff. They feel as though they shouldn't have to do that because all of these women out here are gold diggers and they're only after their money. And the only way that they're going to settle down with the woman is if she's willing to stick in there and go 50-50. Or for some men, even her be the breadwinner so that he can sit at home on the couch. You know what I'm saying?
So, no, you don't need women. For anything, really. But Jessica, what about love? Okay, here's the thing. Yes, I very much do believe that love is something natural we're all inclined to do. I do believe that love is the greatest thing on earth. But here's the thing. Love is not wanting. Love is not needing. Love in and of itself is giving. In fact, it's giving without expecting anything in return. Literally, when you truly love something, you don't motherfucking want anything in return or expect it or wait around for it and say, well, you know what, I did all this for you, so like this is what you have to give me back. Or even, you know what, I like bought all this shit for you and you like don't put out ever. So if you're in a state of like, I don't get it, like I did all these nice things for her, like why won't she like come back around and like sit on my bean? If you really feel like you need her to reciprocate that badly, you need to take a look at yourself and why you feel that need.
Men Go Their Own Way, or MGTOW, have sworn off women completely, saying their lives are better and more productive and fulfilling without women in their lives at all.
So are women's lives.
Yes, I agree. But I mean, it's basically... It's
man, you gotta give me a second to digest that.
It's basically though saying like, it's basically like women saying like, we have no interest in you, and them going, oh yeah, well, we don't have any interest in you first.
That feminism is good. I'm not a feminist. I think it's gotten too far out of control where women just want to be superior, and that to me doesn't do anything. It doesn't benefit society, but that's the same thing also with m.g.t.o.w for me. If you're on the other extreme end and you are out in the world with the mentality that every woman is f***ed up, or that every relationship that you get into, the woman just is going to want to f*** you over, then that's not positive either, because I do know people who have been married for 50, 60 plus years, many people who are happily married.
I think that feminists easily understand MRA ideology because we're working towards the same thing.
In this particular video, I will be explaining why I believe that men going their own way and feminism are exactly the same thing at the core, and why they're less about a social problem and more about an individual responsibility issue.
And the whole MGTOW movement usually came around, I think, around the Me Too movement. And the Me Too movement was obviously when women started talking about, you know, sexual assault and things like that. Now, some of them weren't telling the truth, which is really upsetting. However, we can't dismiss the truth based off the few that weren't telling the truth. And it's not fair, again, to put people in this box and have an extreme reaction to the ones and try and punish everyone for the few that actually were doing wrong.
Okay, so here's my question to you. Now, from what I understand, men join m.g.t.o.w because they have a huge fear of being put in a situation where the legal system is contributing to their pain, whether it's a fake rape or sexual assault allegation, or being put in a situation where divorce is making you feel miserable emotionally, financially, or otherwise. See, here's the thing though, like if you get to know a woman and you go on dates and you treat this woman with respect and she treats you back with respect because you chose a woman who has values first before choosing her on her appearance, let's say, or on how attractive she is in other ways. If you choose someone for their values, meaning someone who's honest, someone who is humble, someone who believes in, respecting people, respecting their opinions, why would you be afraid that this situation turns around into a legal nightmare?
Came to my attention about a year ago about this new lifestyle that men are adopting called m.g.t.o.w, and it stands for Men Going Their Own Way. Now, what this means is men of all backgrounds and all incomes are completely saying no to marriage, dating women in general, and then especially marriage and children. It's It's a lot, okay? And if you guys don't understand how serious this is probably one of the most detrimental things that has happened to any community, but especially, me as a Black woman in the Black community. Now, for single women, this MGTOW movement means even the nice guys, as you guys like to call them, are completely saying no to marriage. They're saying no to relationships, having children. In the Black community, 51% of Black men are unmarried and childless. So you're telling me out of that majority of, men that women would even want, 51%, which is the majority, even a majority of them are going to be saying no to dating, marriage, and children. They're going to be voluntary participants in this new lifestyle, and that means less families, that means less security for women, obviously.
If you go MGTOW, if you see on the YouTube, oh, MGTOW, and you go MGTOW, you go in your own way, then you realize it's over for you. Because MGTOW is a coping movement to go your own death way. The death way is this. The nature is cruel. They don't want your sperm to get into women to raise offspring. Then this nature is very, very cruel. MGTOW is, if you are really black pill MGTOW, you can say to an ugly male, please go MGTOW, go your own way, go dying, go ER, and then it's over for you.
Dating isn't any safer for us females. You MGTOWs are not just supporting this idea of independence and going your own way, you're actually also promoting this hateful obsession towards the female gender. If you want to avoid involvement with women and use your energy to focus on other things like career, etc., whatnot, that's fine, I get that. But this MGTOW community almost seems a little cultish to me, and they're focusing like this hatred towards females. You MGTOW seem awfully paranoid to me and almost like scared little babies throwing this female-hating pout-fest temper tantrum.
For me, the tipping point was recognizing the extent to which these communities were grooming and radicalizing schoolboys. So in my work in schools, where I regularly speak in perhaps 2 schools a week, I suddenly started hearing, perhaps 2 years ago, increasing numbers of boys regurgitating false facts and identical quotes in schools from rural Scotland to inner city London, where it was very clear that they had been groomed online by the same groups and the same people.
The first subtype, this is actually fairly common. This is a man who actually wants to have a relationship with a woman, but personality and mental health symptoms get in the way. For example, we see characteristics like low extroversion, so being highly introverted, high neuroticism, so being vulnerable to anger and depression and anxiety. We also see mental health characteristics consistent with generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder. And when we look over at personality disorders, we see avoidant, narcissistic, and dependent personality disorders are overrepresented here. So what happens here is sometimes people in the subtype say they dislike women or hate women to explain why they're not successful in relationships. But again, sometimes they really do want relationships with women. Now, the second subtype of this category is a little different. These are men who actually do hate women, and to the level where it's kind of a conspiracy theory. So they act like women don't act as individuals, but are rather in some sort of coordinated effort to persecute men. So here we'd see personality characteristics like being low in openness to experience, mid-range or low in extroversion, low in agreeableness, and I don't really see a particular association here with neuroticism. Now, with that low openness to experience, of course, this leads to rigid and dogmatic thinking, not being good at critical analysis, and somewhat consistent with that, we see some paranoia. Now, overrepresented mental health symptoms would be related to paranoid personality disorder, so a tendency to have a grudge. Again, I think a lot of this has to do with financial loss, like family court. I mentioned that before. We see some association with schizoid and schizotypal. Paranoid and schizotypal altogether are the cluster A personality disorders. So those 3 personality disorders are put together in one cluster, and that is the odd eccentric cluster. Now, we also see schizophrenia, overrepresented. This shouldn't be surprising because this does have an association with conspiracy theories. And we also see narcissistic personality disorder, and this would be someone who's highly self-centered, entitled, and arrogant.
I made the mistake of looking at the MGTOW tag on Tumblr, which is like men going their own way. It's like anti-feminism, but to the extreme, because this is like men who think, you know, they don't need women and blah, 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 and they're like, we're not sexist, but stuff like that. It was a very weird tag to look at, because not only was there lots of this like anti-women stuff, there are also a lot of posts by incels. Modernity has shown us how women act when they get a license to behave any way they want. They cover their bodies in tattoos, they sleep with 1,000 chads, they date criminals and give birth to their children, they abort their babies, they drink alcohol like they are men, they wear skimpy clothing, and they smoke like chimneys. Absolutely vile. Well, as a woman with a license to do whatever I want, I don't actually do any of those things, but even if I did, it wouldn't be a bad thing. As long as a person isn't hurting other people, I don't see why it really matters. Like, how does it affect anyone else? How many people a woman sleeps with? Or how much alcohol she drinks, unless, you know, it's affecting her family and friends, and that's a whole other story. Yeah, I find it insane. I just feel like adults should be allowed to do what they want, as long as they take responsibility for their own actions afterwards.
Subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and let us know in the comments which feminist was the most clueless about MGTOW.